Day 1000. It is absolutely mind-blowing to me that I have been playing on a singular Minecraft world totaling 1000 Minecraft days. I never really made much content on this world. I would drop the occasional world tour, but it was just the kind of world that was the best world possible because I didn't have to do anything. It was just me playing the game. I didn't have to edit any videos, add any crazy subtitles, or do anything. However, now that I feel that I've hit day 1000, I feel that I have the obligation to share it with you. And I feel that the best way for me to share it is through a world tour. And what better place to start than my starter shack? I don't have much recollection of how this world actually started. I just remember it must have been 2024, the start of winter break, and I just started a brand new world with the goal of, just playing on it continuously. And that I did. Again, not much recollection. I do recall sailing down somewhere in this ocean and then deciding I'm going to set up shop right here on this small little island of ours. To get a bird's eye view, that's just how small that this island was. I just thought it was like a really nice place to set up shop. Pretty quickly, I actually, moved over here to the mainland where, I decided to do a little theme where I was just going to build a building for everything. So this is actually my first storage room. I didn't really have much room on the first level, but, as you can see, I still got a lot of stuff in here. And then up here, I was collecting so much dirt that I kind of set up a little storage space for it, but, never really used it anyway. Coming over here is my enchant setup. It's a pretty basic enchant setup. I just recently added this obsidian and this oak wood maybe a couple hundred days ago, as it was all grass previously, and I decided to, fix that up. I have a lot of lapis, some books, and some stuff that I thought needed to be enchanted. I also made a map room to kind of track my progress throughout the world. This map, I'm pretty sure, is a little bit outdated, but you still get to see just a whole view of the entire city. And I have like some old maps and mapping supplies in here. Now over here, I decided I was gonna build up to Y level 100 and just make my a kind of lookout platform for the entire world so that I could see what I was building over. And this is back when this entire place was just straight savanna biome, so you really didn't get much. But now there's so many buildings that just completely tower over this Y100 threshold and just completely block the view anyway. I also set up roads in the style of cobblestone on the inside and oak wood on the outside. This is actually one of my favorite builds in this world, believe it or not, and it's actually my first farm. I wanted to keep it a little bit realistic and be, thinking to myself, well, how did could I make an infinite farm just by digging a canal and placing down crops? And the answer was yes, I could. I remember when I started out, I was dedicated to really taking the world slow. And then over here we have my pumpkin farm, which is always been small. This right here was actually where I would have my horse be, and I would travel around on horse before I beat the game and got my elytra. I've since moved my horse to a horse ranch in the city. Here are my bigger farms, my bigger wheat farm, my cow farm, and my sheep farm. This cow farm has always been like super duper like. Then here we have my melon farm, which was kind of like my main thing. Over here, I used to have an infinite cobblestone generator, but then I was like, this is kind of getting in the way of things, and I tried to switch things up, but I couldn't really come on a design. Over here was my storage room, but for crops actually, as you can see, with stylized with the hay bale building, roof and everything. There's actually some stuff in here. This is one of my oldest axes. Wow. So yeah, very, very cool building. Over here we have my sugarcane farm, and honestly this is like the most proud I've ever been of a farm. I originally just had this all be water, but as you can see I've slabbed it up. I didn't even realize that you could slab it up and keep it all, and it's a very fun farm to play around with. Here is my oak farm and my netherwort farm. Kind of kept the oak trees kind of like level and made a height limit so that they wouldn't become super big and become a super duper big pain in the butt. Netherwort farm, I don't think I've farmed in ages. And then this also kind of became a backup storage area where for a while it's just all of my storage would be over here. Now over here is easily the most important area, and it's a complete dirt grass shack dedicated to my villagers. I made a double door out of fences so that no villagers could escape. Down here is where they sleep, and as you can see, by the way, that this is architecturally made, there have been lots of changes to the size of it. Up here is obviously where my villagers are, and I also have a chest here so that I could place my emeralds and whatnot, whatever I wanted to trade. Over here, though, this is where I would go to zombify my villagers. Sadly, the zombie died. I don't really know what happened. I think one day I set my world to peaceful, and obviously you can tell how that went. Also, here was some backup storage. It's actually got some decent stuff. Over here, I set up a rail line so that I can transport villagers to the city, but, not much really happened. We've got some creeper holes. This is kind of the best view of how you can tell this has changed and needed more room for, I guess you could say, sprawl for my villagers. Now, over here was actually one of my originally favorite places in the world. This whole, obviously, dark green grass area was a forest, and I thought it was really interesting, considering that it was just like a peninsula of forest. And this is actually the only forest in a pretty close radius. However, I think it's time that I move over here, where we have my dark oak farm, my mangrove farm, and right here is my pale oak farm. Right, they're all manual. I don't really have the time to make a auto farm. And over here, as you can tell by the podzol, I used to have my spruce farm, which has since moved. I also have other farms here. I have wheat and potatoes and carrots, and over here was actually my first auto farm. It was originally a mixture of pumpkin and melon, but I converted it to melon. And then here I just have pig and a chicken locked up. I'm pretty sure this was like before the update, which changed them to like their warm and cold textures. So I'm pretty sure like I wanted to like keep them the old way, because I'm still not a fan of the changing of the textures based on the biomes, although it's a pretty cool idea. However, now we enter the city. I created this fence to kind of create an actual barrier between my base and the city, kind of like a millionaire's ranch in a land of poor people. And right here was the first building I ever built in the city. As you can see, one main street. It's literally just a basic shack. And you'll also notice that, me naming signs and streets and houses and addresses pretty quickly dies out, as over here is still the biggest build in the city, is my mob farm. Now, I pretty quickly jumped up into this, and this was such a pain to build, but if I'm being honest, this has been one of the builds that has changed me the most as a Minecraft builder. You can completely see mobs falling through, and I kind of designed this place up here to be kind of like an office space, but it's been empty. I feel like it's best if I just start off on the east side. So yeah, I don't really know the order, but I also just started filling in these areas with houses and kind of sticking to a theme of oak, spruce, or dark oak with cobblestone or stone bricks, as you can see here. And it's actually probably my favorite building style in the entire city. Over here, I set up my original storage system for when I was building in the city. And yeah, over here is supposed to be, an apartment complex. This, while it looks a little bit boring, this is actually where I first learned to, decorate interiors. As you can see, I don't know. One of the levels, I'm pretty sure it's the last level up here, is where I really went all out on the interior. And then up here, we also have, kind of like a deck, balcony kind of thing. And we're already running out of time here on day 1000. I actually kind of want to get a picture. So, yeah. Over here is a place I like to call Iroh Mountain. I think I was rewatching Avatar at the time, and this mountain over here was a bunch of stone at the top, and I was like, it would be really cool if I made like a mural kind of thing, and I just built in Iroh's face. It doesn't really look like Uncle Iroh, just looks like a happy face, and I'm actually very proud of it though. Coming down here, you'll actually notice this is not a natural river, it's a canal I dug out a while back. I think if you go to one of my shorts, you'll actually see me working on the canal here, and eventually I was like, well, I got to dig it out, right? And I think it does a lot to separate the city and kind of adds to the story of how it becomes like a trading center, right? Yeah, as we walk here, you can definitely tell impact that, woodenness has on it. I don't know. Here, I was trying to make like a river walk thing. I was like super inspired after Ninjago. I don't know which season it is, but I'm pretty sure it's season 9, right? Lloyd and Harumi are like walking alongside a river, and it's kind of like a bad neighborhood, but the architecture was very nice, and I decided to try and copy it over here. Over here, though, I started moving towards deep slate in my builds, and I think that added a lot. And then as of late, I've been adding banners to kind of stylize the city. And then this was supposed to be a transit center. As you can see here, I actually have a rail line. As we walk down, you'll actually see another tall building. However, this building is actually dedicated to being a water elevator to this water elevator to the farm so that I could go up there and AFK and get my drops. This building was a kind of like a, I have space here, let me just try something out. Nothing much. This building, however, was actually one of the earlier buildings in the world, and I was kind of hoping to have it be a train station, but it went unfinished for so long. Eventually I did finish it, but a lot of the city around it had already been built by the time it had been finished, and you know, I've kind of just left it empty. Over here, a newer addition to the village is the horse ranch manor mansion thing. You know, it's got 3 stories, and while I do kind of regret not furnishing it, it's a very, very nice house. And the way, I'm actually very proud because I've like blocked off areas to make it seem like a real house. And then here, obviously, we have our horses. We've got all kinds of horses. I was up here breeding to try and get like a maxed out horse, but to no avail. Here, the city gets a lot wonkier. As over here, this is supposed to be a hotel, and the theme is that every single side is different, and it's like a 3x3 kind of area, basically. It's pretty trash, one of the worst builds. Over here is the clock tower, or, you know, at least I've tried. You go all the way up, and it's supposed to be a clock tower. There's a little interior here for a clock keeper, so, yeah. Now we move over to when I started expanding westward. I built these kind of like twin houses to be like a kind of like condo type of thing, townhouse situation. Over here is one of my best builds ever, as I began using gradients here to build this church. We have a cemetery, and while some of it is like jokes, but I kind of created the signs to, you know, dedicated to not only TV shows that I used to watch, but also to the tools that I've lost, like when I died or something. And this church, honestly, I think came out really nice, and I really like my use of stained glass panes on the outside here. Now here is just an area that's been getting griefed by Enderman, and I've decided just to keep it. This was supposed to be my kind of Central Park vibe of the city. It's way too small to kind of be that, but obviously it adds a breakup. And then here was easily my largest. This building is the building that I am most proud of. It is supposed to be my bank, and to be honest, I think not only architecturally but also style-wise and size-wise, it just fits together so nicely. You know, you've got a couple of stories and whatnot, and I have a beacon underneath here which provides me with haste around the city. And, you know, you get here and this is the top floor, and you know, you've got quite a nice view. But what I'm really most proud of is just the way that it comes together in layers, and then the roof, I kind of just went in blind, and I'm very proud. Yeah. And then up here, a wandering trader spawned, so I just decided to keep the llamas up here. I thought it was pretty cool. I think one of them died, though, so that's unfortunate. Over here was actually originally going to be like a crazy amalgamation of, well, crazy architecture, and then I pretty quickly took it down. I think in some older screenshots and whatnot, I have what it is, but I was just really going in blind, and this is when I began to first start losing love for the world, and I stopped playing on it as often, kind of in frustration of this project. I completely tore it down and rebuilt it, and I'm actually very proud. Over here is my pet house. I have all my animals, like very nice, very mellow, very chill area. And if you'll notice, I have this kind of gradient going of the road of cobblestone, gravel, andesite, stone bricks, and also stone later on when I get silk touch. Here I also have 2 trader llama built, you know, pretty cool. This was originally an empty lot. Like, I had an idea for the build and then just kind of gave up on it, but then I decided to tear it down, and I actually had some story adding like a fence and whatnot. And then this is the original rail line where everyone was actually going to be like the main spaces where I set up my rail line. Over here is a little bit of a failed project, as I was not really sure what I was doing architecturally, but then I turned the inside into a auto melon and pumpkin farm. I was supposed to set up apartments on later floors, but over here I also, if I can reach it, I don't know how the heck I'm supposed to reach it, but yeah, it's my auto sugarcane farm, my chest right here, and it's actually doing pretty well actually. Over here is also one of the buildings that I am most proud of, especially because of my architectural style that I use on it. This was originally my iron farm, right? But then one day my villagers just like despawned or something, so there's no villagers in there. It's just a zombie. But it still produced enough iron to the point where like I didn't even need to set up anything. Like, I love how I actually set up, you know, a design on the outside, as it was just super duper plain with these bricks and arches and whatnot. Over here is my auto stone farm, as you can see. Oh snap, I just broke it. I should probably fix that. But yeah, it's got a nice little storage system, a nice little balcony, and then later on I even added a third floor, which is supposed to be, you know, maybe where the King of the Stone lives. And also, as we begin moving west, I really start to add theme and vibrancy to my world, and we've got, you know, kind of like the hallway of iron, so much iron in there. I also have some barrels. They actually had a lot, originally for storage as I was building up the city, but then I actually just decided to keep them there, and they tell a big story. I'm very proud of them. Over here is a much newer building in my city. It is the bamboo farm. As you'll notice, the shape is very, very interesting. I wanted to build up, but also, you know, be kind of on the DL about it. I had just a little bit of space over here in this area. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I was pretty restricted by size, and I'm very proud of how this turned out with my use of tinted glass and polished deep slate. Here was also supposed to be like a backup bank, kind of office space that also went completely unused. This is also something I'm very proud of. It's a monument to myself, Minecraft character. I was originally inspired by Luke the Notable to build this, and I kind of just went in raw, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. It's just scaled so well. The emeralds, the glowstone, the quartz, it's just all so well. And then later on I add foliage to make it seem like it's old and weathered and getting pooped on. Honestly, a build that I'm incredibly proud of. And then over here I set up another park to get this, wait, not this one. Get this super duper tall spruce trees. I literally planted a spruce tree, got rid of all the leaves on the top, and then added another one on top. And, you know, that's just how I got the super duper tall spruce tree. So yeah, a very nice little park area, a nice little retaining wall. It tells a lot of story. As you can also notice, I begin moving more into foliage and wildlife, right, with my use of plants as shade and cover. And while it does block a lot of the view of the city, I'm very proud of how it turns out. Over here was really one of the first expansion projects of my west side. I was kind of experimenting with like a curve design. It was originally supposed to be a kelp farm, but that quickly, you know, just turned to crap, and you know, it's been empty ever since. Over here, we really begin to first reach the beach, and this is again one of the newer buildings. It doesn't really fit in, but I'm very proud of the way it turned out. And this design that I have going on here with the stuff sticking out, I've actually decided to use it in the future and use it for reference. It's a nice little build, kind of like a little cabana. Here, again, another nice little beach house. The type of stuff that you would see in like Malibu or the Palisades, right? It's supposed to be styled after that. Small, but fancy, expensive, and kind of homey. Over here is kind of the keeper of my second beacon, which is my speed and regen beacon. It was supposed to be a map room, and so I kind of made it like sphere style. And I'm very proud of how I also did this. Just basic stone, and it came out really nicely. Supposed to be whatever these are called on top. I'm pretty sure it came out really well. And I also failed to mention this, but I also began to use a lot of alleys and also use paintings, kind of like graffiti, along these alleys. Here is also my main site of flooring, where I would set up all of the floors and roads. However, moving over here is I began constructing this area a little under a year ago, and to see how much I've done in the past year, I'm actually very, very impressed. You might notice that stuff in my inventory and hotbar has changed. That's because it's a couple days later. I finished the tour, but my mic broke, so now I'm just resuming it. And also another thing that I like about my iron farm is that if we go up here, on top of it is my spruce farm, which, you know, actually, you know, makes it like less one-dimensional, especially on the roof. So yeah, anyway, this area right here, as you can see, is kind of like a square. It used to be, you know, okay, it used to be like super uniform and everything, where every single building had this design, but then I eventually changed it up. But anyway, at the time I was in Istanbul and I was visiting Taksim Square, and I kind of wanted to recreate something like that. But, you know, I realized while I was designing this, like, there's no way I can build so high up. And I also didn't want it to compete with kind of, you know, my downtown area, which is like right over here. So I decided to keep it to like a tall 2 stories, making like each story like 5 blocks tall, right? So anyway, I'm gonna start over here, which is where all my mason villagers are. They helped a lot with like the building of everything, from like my bricks and terracotta. I'm very happy with, you know, what I did over here with my windows, making them scaffolding, trapdoors, and ladders, and everything was really free-handed. This second story supposed to be like residential, but nothing really came of it. Over here, another thing I'm really proud of is my chest room, mainly because all the main stuff that like you need for building is like super organized. But then, you know, you come over here to these chests and they're not organized, but it's a bunch of gunk anyway, and it kind of gives off the vibe of like an open shop, kind of like a clothing store. And then as you can see, we add the banners here. This is my wool farm, free-handed auto. Made the design myself, very nice, you know, 2 stories, actually 3 stories over here, with this, you know, supposed to be like a restaurant kind of thing. Here, instead of keeping it as 1 building, I broke it up into 3. So when we come over here, this is also supposed to be kind of like a restaurant, with this top floor kind of being a mix of residential and restaurant. Over here was kind of supposed to be like a vantage point, high point, in the square. It's not really that tall, but again, I use gradients. I'm very proud of actually the way that this turned out. But easily, of the 3 buildings in this little part, this is the one I'm most proud of. It's supposed to be like a storage depot, as you can see here. You know, we've tied down some logs, but then coming up here, it is all storage. It was meant to be a replacement for my storage room, but I never really got to it anyway, and I'm actually very proud of the way that it turned out, both on the interior but also on the exterior, with a mixture of andesite to separate the spruce from the bricks. Now, as we come down this road here, you'll notice that it's lined alongside with lodestones. This is when lodestones were cheap, and I decided to use them as guardrails. So, you know, very nice. And then coming over here, this was supposed to be like a fish market, an underground fish market. And if I'm being honest, if I had the time, I absolutely would have finished this and the vibes would have been off the charts. But for now, it's really just like empty and doesn't have any purpose. Over here are, you know, my docks, and we have a big dock, a medium dock, and a small dock, all holding their purpose, and one huge storage warehouse and a smaller one, but I'm very proud of the way that both warehouses turned out. So yeah. As we come down here, I decided to move in more towards the beach vibe and move away from the industrial, even though that's super unrealistic, like having a beach next to an industrial area. But yeah, this is supposed to be like another like small kind of like house, beach house, maybe like an Airbnb kind of vibe over here. You can walk through the glass panes and end up right here on the beach, sunbathing on your towels and whatnot, and getting a drink right here. This is supposed to be kind of like a beachside bar. So very nice. This is all separated by a park, actually. But then coming over here behind the fish market, underground fish market, is just this. Again, I had a space and I didn't know really what to do with it, so I just plopped this in here, kind of like a trash house, but on purpose. It doesn't have much of a purpose, but it adds a lot. And then I also had a sign that like kind of leads to the harbor, even though you have to go straight through this if you want to reach the harbor. So yeah, a nice little alleyway, which leads us to our west side. And right here is the Glistening Melon, a dinner and pub. And I'm very proud of the way this turned out. I used the outside of barrels, which not only doubles as storage, but just looks so nice, especially in complement to the spruce trapdoors and dark oak logs. You come inside, the first floor is really more of the pub. You also see, you know, all these designs. The second floor is where you can all sit down and have a drink or maybe have some food. And then the third story is a residential where, you know, the chef would live, where the owner would live, right? And it adds a very nice, you know, rooftop view to the city. Over here, kind of like an empty building, it was also meant to be like a restaurant. And, you know, we come up to the second story and you can come up here and have like a dinner atop this balcony. Again, another really nice view of the city. A building I'm a little bit more proud of, but also doesn't really hold much of a purpose. And this is really the first building that I started to experiment using mud. So yeah. Coming over here, another building I'm very proud of. I was really inspired by Fwip to build something like this out of like his medieval city. Safe to say, it really just came off as block vomit. But I'm still really proud of the way that my arches came out. And the interior is a little bit nice. I use it a little bit as kind of like a storage facility. And then coming up, you know, it's supposed to be kind of like maybe an inn kind of vibe. And then you come over here, and then there's a nice alley. You know, it's not a very nice alley, right? Alongside, and you can cut through, and then you end up over here. Now this I originally built in my creative world to see off of a Pinterest reference to see if I could really build, and I was super proud of the way that it came out. That I ended up kind of copy pasting it here, scaled it down a little, and it's not as good, but you know, it's still a good building, and you know, you can see everything I used here. Now this is most definitely supposed to be my clothing shop, right? You can definitely tell with the kind of pink, warm, open vibe we're going here. And another thing I failed to mention is that 4 businesses are all connected to each other with this one alleyway, which then leads you back out to the street. Now this building over here actually houses my nether portal to my nether roof. And there's really nothing on my nether roof except for one thing. And this was back when I was like really bored with the world, not knowing what to do. So I went ahead and built a gold farm. As you can see here, a very small gold farm, but you know, it provided its yields back in the day, and I'm very proud of the way that it came out. Just went off of a 10-minute struggle craft tutorial. Nothing much on the nether roof. Over here was kind of supposed to copy off the vibe of my library, which I'll get to. A small house, kind of meant for like a librarian, right? You come up and you know, it's just a small house, nothing special. Over here I kind of have like a history of the world, and this is like where I had my first villagers who actually escaped from, you know, my mason building over there in the back. And eventually they both died of natural causes. One of them became a zombie, and the other one died of fall damage, just falling off there. So very nice. But anyway, this is the library. I kind of tried to model it after my childhood library in my neighborhood, but I kind of failed miserably. But I'm very proud of the way that it turned out because it has its own vibe and its own charm. And it's a very nice library. You can take this kind of slab staircase up and reach the highest of books. So yeah, you also have a great view of the river over here. It's a very, very nice library. Now coming over here is really my more church / cathedral thing, but we're at the back right now, right? And I freehanded this. On one side, you'll see that I tried to experiment and add like weathering using stairs instead of full blocks, but then on the other, I got lazy and I just decided, you know, not to do that. It's really more of kind of like a cathedral vibe, as it's much more grand. And I, again, freehanded the entire thing. I'm so proud of the way that this turned out. I'm really proud of my stained glass over here, which I was kind of trying to make like a sunset, right? The interior is very basic, but still comes together really nice with the end rods used as lighting. And then up here you can have, you know, your priest give his sermon, very, very grand. And then more stained glass up top, kind of looks like an alien saucer, but it all comes together really, really well. And we have these little gaps in the quartz, which allows for, you know, wind to come in and naturally cool down the church, cathedral thing. Beside it, we have a very long park. Up here gives a much better view, as you can see just how long the park is. And yeah, I wanted to break it up with foliage, as my west side had also become a lot of sprawl. So over here, 2 of the newer buildings. I'm gonna start over here. This was kind of meant to be like a hotel kind of thing. I remember kind of just freehanding it, going off a little bit of reference, and I'm very proud of the way that it turned out, especially the first floor, as I feel like if I really added, you know, decoration in an interior, you'd get the sense of just how grand of a hotel this is. Over here was kind of like a slop building, but I'm super duper proud of the floor I made here, using quartz to break up from the diorite. It really adds a lot of character. These 2 are some of the last buildings I added to the city. Again, kind of just like filler buildings that I kind of rushed as I was running out of time to reach my 1,000-day threshold. And yeah, you know, nothing really special. I keep copying the pattern that I use in my storage room for the floor. And then I also have, you know, a small little market stall over here. Also using bridges to connect, you know, my city with the village over here. This is actually the first bridge that I ever made. This is back when I was riding on horseback before I had an elytra, and I would go on my horse all the way over here to trade with these villagers. And I made this because I kept getting stuck in the water, and I hated it. Moving along here, there wasn't really much arable land. The terrain was not very friendly. friendly, so I just decided to add sugarcane and moss it up and bone meal it up. Here, something that I feel has a lot of wasted potential, as I built it one block up in terms of foundation using bricks and spruce. Again, nothing really came of it, and this was more of a pain in the butt to build, but I'm still kind of happy with the way that it turned out. Over here, adding to the park is a well. This hole, actually, this 3x3 hole is completely natural. Like this was a 3x3 hole into water when the world first came seed, when I first opened up the world, right? So yeah, I've just decided to decorate it and make it like a kind of old weathered well. Something I failed to mention about this house, I added, you know, a nice little backyard using these as the fences. I was kind of going British inspired. Now this area over here, if I go up and get a better view, I actually extensively terraformed, right? It was, I made it all completely flat to be like one block off or even level with the river, as we'll see here. Yeah, Y64. And it's kind of supposed to be like a business park where all of your little businesses, well, large businesses, are all clumped together. This building I'm actually really proud of. Stone brick as the base and spruce log, very basic. But the mangrove planks actually break it up so well and complement really well with the brick roof that I'm actually going to use this in the future. I'm super duper happy with it. This was a filler building. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm not very happy with the fact that I use a lot of filler buildings in the city. But as we go on, you know, we see alleys. If we take down this alley, you know, you can go all the way down there and also connects to here. And then this alley over here leads to a courtyard, kind of, where, you know, maybe employees on break could eat, right? If I had seating and decorate. But over here is supposed to be our water facility. We are in a savanna biome, which means that we don't get rain at all, which I kind of hate, as not having weather is a real bum. So over here in the river biome where it does rain, I actually added this to kind of be like a water facility that would then feed the city. And as I said that, you know, it starts to rain in the river biome. But I'm very proud actually of the way that it turned out, using a kind of short design with the roof and not having it overhang too much, and then basic arches, but also with the roses in between on the white stained glass. Very nice. I think I'm going to replicate that. And as we take this nice little bridge over here, we kind of reach like the sister to this water facility, as I kind of base it off of that, but it's really more of like a modern house, right? It's another filler building. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose. Getting back to the business expo, I used the banners again to kind of break it up. And over here, another filler building, but I actually experimented making one story super duper tall to kind of make the building bigger. Over here, another basic building, but I don't know why. I'm just really proud of the way that it turned out. I think maybe it's just the super uniform windows organized, right? I don't know what it is, but I'm proud of this building. And then this was actually the first building of the Business Expo. It's my actual physical bank where I hold all of my riches, except I don't hold all of my riches here. I just added some basic stuff, you know, to make it seem like it. And then, you know, more of our bone mealed river walk, terraformed moss nature river walk area. Over here, another filler building, but again turned out really well as I break up from the jungle log into stripped oak. I don't know why, it works well. Interiors, nothing's going on, but it's really nice. I'm kind of proud of the way that it turned out. Now we kind of reach our squatter settlements, as every single street is kind of like a small little alley. Again, filler building, literally nothing special. One of the worst buildings in the city, actually. Oh, would you look at that? It's another filler building. Wow. You know, nothing special. Over here, though, is actually my wood farm, or at least what was supposed to be my replacement for it, as I was tired of having to go back and forth between the city and my physical oak farm to farm trees. I decided to try something over here using the same height restriction, but it just never worked. It got super messy. Leaves wouldn't despawn as they cling onto these, and I wouldn't even get my saplings back, so I kind of abandoned this. That's really everything, except I actually forgot one thing. This is my nether portal. I'm very proud of the way that I made like a hard design. It's really nice. Kind of my first attempt at a custom portal, actually, and it came out really nice and warm. And this is my nether hub. Work in progress. As you can see here, I was trying to switch from my old design of diorite into stone brick, make it more blast proof and less ugly, but yeah, you know, really nothing much going on here, although I did spawn near a fortress. I'm not going there because I got a tortoise. Last and final building that I'm actually most proud to show you. Actually, I don't think I showed you guys the bridge. This bridge was super duper flat. You know, it used to just be this spruce log outline, and then eventually I filled it in with stone bricks. And then eventually I added the arches to the bottom right to kind of liven it up, which did a lot. But I knew for a fact that the bridge was missing something, and that was actually a wall that would, you know, prevent villagers from throwing themselves off. And so I kind of went in free-handed and just tried out this iron bar design, and it came out so nice. I'm going to continue to use this. It came out so nice. And then also, because the actual bridge was much higher than the surrounding area, I just terraformed it up, as you'll see, right here, right here, right here, right here. So, yeah, all terraformed up. This was supposed to be a train station. I was kind of going for a circular vibe, but then I was like, I need to finish the city first, so, ignore this. Over here, these were actually, if I'm not mistaken, the last 2 buildings I ever did in the city, and they're just 2 market stalls, because right here is the museum, and I'd been working on this for a long time, eventually finishing the outside, but never really having anything to put in the inside. When I first started the world, I actually kept my original tools, my first set of wood tools, iron tools, stone tools, first sets of armor, everything. I wouldn't let them go out because I knew eventually I wanted to make a museum, and boy oh boy am I super duper proud of this museum. Over here we can see the way that the city has progressed as I've locked maps from, you know, 400 days, 800 days, and then over here there's 700 and 600 days. And then this is the current map of our city. Day 1000. And boy, there's just so much going on. You'll really see that the east side is less dense and more spread around, as I thought I had more space, and then the west side is all super duper dense. Also, because the east side, the terrain is much worse as you go on. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching this tour and getting through this video. I'm sure it's going to be super duper long. If you liked it and you'd like to see more of this world, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye!